Hi, I'm Matt Landers, Head of Developer Relations at WP Engine. And before we get our session kicked off, I thought I should tell you a little bit about myself so that you know who you're getting your information from. I am a self-taught developer. I started learning how to code right out of high school. And at the time, it was the late 90s, no internet, use a real book. Crazy, I know. But I had this goal, this lofty goal of working for Microsoft one day. Well, at 19, I got the opportunity to work with Microsoft. I quit college, went to work for Microsoft, and that's where I spent the next year and a half. But being stupid and young and dumb, not knowing what I had, I left and started my own consulting company, only to return back to Microsoft a couple years later. So in total, I was at Microsoft for about 10 years. I learned so much while I was there. I started out as a technology specialist, so I'd go around to companies and tell them about .NET and why they should adopt it. Then I transitioned into consulting services, where I went into Fortune 100 companies and built some of the largest enterprise systems in the world. That was a really great experience for me and really propelled me into the next part of my career, which was when I fell in love with Node. So I had been doing C# for so long. Obviously, I've been doing web stuff as well. So I was in this conundrum where I'm using C# on the back end, but then I'd still need to use JavaScript on the front end. And Node was just like this new world where I could use the same language in two places, and I really loved it. So in 2013, I left Microsoft to create a startup with two other Microsoft employees called Platypi, where we created a front-end framework, not very different from Angular and React. We wrote it in TypeScript. We were on the homepage of we were on the TypeScript homepage. Our framework was featured. But it didn't really take off like some of these other ones. React was starting to get hot at that time. Angular was talking about Angular 2.0 and potentially using TypeScript. But we used our framework to create a headless CMS and then use that to write websites and apps for clients. Now, at the time, we didn't call it a headless CMS because we didn't know what that meant. We just needed some way for our clients to manage their content and data whenever we built a site or an app for them. We then used our framework to create a learning management platform that we used at our other startup, Covalence, which is still going on today. It's a coding boot camp that's all online, where we teach people how to code and get them started in their career as developers. So it's really cool to be able to help people do what I did. Really come from any other industry, learn how to code, and then get a good job as a developer. Because it's a really great field that a lot of people find enjoyment in, especially me, even after 20 years. So at some point in the startup life, I had kids, and then I decided, you know what, startup life probably not going to last forever for me. I need to start looking for something. And I ended up at what you would think is a pretty unlikely company in WP Engine. I'm not a PHP developer. I hadn't done a lot of WordPress, so it seemed pretty unlikely for me to be there. But WordPress was kind of entering this time where you could use modern technologies and frameworks to build sites on top of WordPress as a backend. So when I got there, I got to work on our Atlas platform. I built the first prototype for that in Go. And then once we got some teams up and running, I transitioned over to our developer relations team, where now I'm responsible for educating people on the possibilities with WordPress, how you can build really great digital experiences with WordPress as your backend, and then modern frameworks, tools, and technologies for your front end. And that is what this session is all about. So all that to get there. So let's dive in and see what we can do. All right, now that you know a little bit about me, let's talk about the session WordPress without PHP. The future is headless. At WP Engine, we've been working really hard to make WordPress a great headless CMS. And hopefully you can see how you can build really dynamic, complex experiences with WordPress, just like you can with any other headless CMS. If after the session you have any questions, hit me up on Twitter. Matt_Landers is my handle. Follow me, especially if you're interested in headless WordPress. All right, so why WordPress? Why would I use WordPress when there's all of these purpose-built headless CMSs out there? Well, for one, it's open source and a lot of them are not. And you may not realize this, but WordPress powers over 40% of all websites. And that is still growing, which boggles my mind sometimes to think about. The other thing is content publishers already know WordPress. They've probably worked in a WordPress site before. They know how to log into the admin. They know how to edit content. They can get around. So why go learn something completely new when WordPress is there and it works? It's also got a really crazy extensible API surface. And the main reason for that is WP GraphQL. WP GraphQL gives WordPress this just really robust API that can be extended by other people, and people have written lots of extensions for it, which we'll talk about in a minute. And then you can use WordPress and build with whatever modern framework you want on the front end. So why are you worried about the backend? Like the backend, we know it works, it's tried and true, it's WordPress. But on the front end, we can use all these cool tools and technologies to build sites like Gatsby. So what plugins do we need to make WordPress a great headless experience? Well, the number one that we need is WP GraphQL. And you can see in this list that there's a theme, that it's a WP GraphQL and something else. So we need WP GraphQL and advanced custom fields, also with the extension for WP GraphQL. So those are the first three. We need custom post types UI to create custom content types, essentially. And then there's also an extension for WP GraphQL for that as well. And then if you're going to use Gatsby, you want the Gatsby plugin. And then we're also working on a plugin and node package at WP Engine. It's still in its early infancy stages, but it can work with a lot of different frameworks and solve a lot of the common problems that you might have in a headless environment, like previews. So if you are interested in building a blog with Gatsby and WordPress, there's another session happening with Jason Ball, who is the creator of WP GraphQL, and Tyler Barnes. They are going deep into the WP Gatsby add-on or plugin and teaching you how to create your own blog with those tools. By the way, Jason Ball used to work at Gatsby. Now he works at WP Engine. We're really excited to have him. So go check him out. All right. Not a lot of slides because slides are boring. Let's jump into the demo and actually use these plugins to build a dynamic site with WordPress. All right, let's go. All right, it's demo time, and I'm already in a WordPress site, and we're going to dig into what's going on here. So the first thing is that I created this site using local. So this is just a tool that lets you create WordPress sites on your local machine really quickly. Definitely recommend it if you're going to be developing using WordPress. All right, so I've got this up. It's at GatsbyConf.local on my local machine, and I've already installed all the plugins. So these are the ones that we talked about in the presentation. Have ACF, Custom Post Type UI, Gatsby, GraphQL, and then some extensions for WP GraphQL. All right, so we already know that WordPress comes with posts, like a blog post. That's what these are. I've pre-seeded this with some stuff from Force Ipsum, which is like Lorem Ipsum, but for Star Wars, which is awesome. So I've got some posts in here. So we're going to spin up a Gatsby site and see these posts show up using just the Gatsby starter. But we want to look at how we can use WordPress more of like a headless CMS. And in a headless CMS, we typically want to create specialized content types that are specific to whatever we want to show on the front end. For instance, a very common scenario is creating team members that then a content publisher or admin can go in and add into the backend editor, and then have those show up predictably on the front end. So we're going to create a new custom content type called team members, and we're going to add some fields to it and then have that show up on our website. But first, let's go ahead and get our Gatsby site up and running. So I'm going to go over to the terminal, and I'm going to run, I need to pull the script here. Just a little script to go ahead and create our site. And this is on the Gatsby getting started for WordPress. So nothing special here. All right, I'm just going to rename this to the same as my WordPress instance. You can name it whatever you want. Just don't want to use this default name. So we'll call it GatsbyConf, and I'm going to let that roll. So that's going to take a few minutes. But once it's done, we'll be able to run our site and see our posts. All right, so our Gatsby site has been pulled down, cloned from the starter template, and now we just want to run it and make sure everything's cool. So the first thing we need to do is to change the URL that the template's pointing to. We want to point the URL to our local WordPress instance. So let's go to Gatsby config. And right now it's pointing to a demo that's on WP Engine, but we're going to change those to GatsbyConf.local. And we'll remove the SSL since that's not part of this. And then we just want to make sure this is working. So we can run npx Gatsby develop. This is going to generate our static site, get our page up. It's going to give us two different URLs. So we're going to get localhost 88,000, which is going to be our just website. And then we're also going to get one with underscore GraphQL. That's going to be a graphical editor IDE for the Gatsby GraphQL server. All right, so there they are. Let's click on this one. All right, there are our cool Star Wars 4 Simpson posts. And then we click them. It's static, it's fast, it's awesome, sweet. All right, one thing I don't like about the starter, which hopefully somebody will fix this, is it's not TypeScript, but we're going to use TypeScript because JavaScript doesn't exist. It's just what comes out of TypeScript. All right, let's do this. First, we need to go create a custom post type. So we've got all our plugins, like we were saying. Now we're just going to create a custom post type. All right, we're going to create team members. It's so hard to type this, team members. It just looks so weird. Then we need our labels that are going to show up in the UI. And these are going to show up in the nav as team members so that then a content producer can go and click on that navigation link and enter in the team members. So that's cool. So we'll go to the bottom here and we want to make sure it's going to show up in GraphQL. We don't want this editor and featured image here, and we're going to keep title and just use that as the name of our team member. But we don't want this to look like a post when we're editing it. And if we leave the editor, then it kind of looks like you're editing a post, but really we just want the data. So we don't want that at all. All right. And then GraphQL, we'll call this team members. All right, cool. We have that post type, and then it shows up in our nav over here. And we say add new, and you'll notice we only have a title. I'll put Matt Landers. Whoops. But that's not very interesting. We want to have some other fields to go along with this. We want to be able to store like the bio and the Twitter handle and whatever else, social accounts or whatnot. So we're going to create some custom fields. And that's with the advanced custom field editor. We're going to name this field group team member. We'll add a new field. So we want a bio. And we're going to use a text area. So the field type allows you to choose how the content editor is going to enter the content. So you have text area, number, range, like there's a whole lot of options here, but we're gonna use a text area because this is a bio. And then we also want, let's see, our Twitter handle. All right, all good. We only want this to show up on the team member post type. So we don't want to add this to like regular blog posts. We only want this to show up on the team members. So that's what this location section allows us to do, is to figure out where will the ACF fields be available. And if we scroll all the way down, we get this little checkbox, which is really important. And that is to have it show up in GraphQL. And then the field name is what we want to call this. And we're going to call it ACF team member, just so we know what it is, and then we'll publish that. Now, if we go back over to our team members and we click on the one we created, we have more fields now, so this is awesome. Now we have a place to put in the extra data that we're going to need on the front end to display. So I'm going to create a bio, just for Simpson. And my Twitter handle, Matt_Landers. All right, we'll update that. And then let's add a new one. Let's add Luke Skywalker. Always my favorite character growing up. The Force is strong with this one. And Hamill himself is his Twitter handle. I think we shall find out. We shall. All right. We have team members. That's awesome. Let's look in our graphical IDE locally. And we can pull back, let's see. Team members, nodes. Then there's that ACF team member grouping that we created. We'll pull out the title and the ID, and we'll run this. And then there's all of our data. Now, this isn't the data that Gatsby queries, but this is the data that GraphQL has, or WP GraphQL. And it looks very, very similar. There's just some prefixes and things on the Gatsby side that you'll notice, but pretty much it's the same thing. So let's go, and I'm going to go ahead and go back out of this, and we'll look at it on the Gatsby side. So if we come back over here, go to our graphical interface, and now we'll see that we have this all WP team member query that we can use. We can also just do WP team member here. But we want to pull back all of the team members, so we're going to use the all WP team member query. And then we go to our nodes, and we want to pull back the bio, Twitter, title, and ID. Awesome. Let's take this out. That was in there by accident. All right, if we run this, we get our data back. The only difference between this and WP GraphQL is like some of the names of these nodes, but it's pretty much the same. But this isn't that pretty coming back. I want it to be a little bit easier to work with when we're in Gatsby. So let's add some aliases here. So for nodes, I'm going to call this members. And for ACSF team members, I'm going to call this data. And instead of title, I'm going to call this name, since it's actually the name. And make sure that works. All right, cool. So this is our query that we're going to use. All right, let's go to our code. And let's create a new page that shows our team members on it in a list. All right, so like I said, I'm going to use TypeScript because I can't not use TypeScript because it's just objectively better. So, and all I have to do in Gatsby is just name a file TSX, and then we're good. So I'm going to import React from React. And just having TypeScript makes everything so much easier, because I get so much more IntelliSense. So nice. All right, we have a team page. We're going to export default team page. And we're going to export const page query. And this page query is just a GraphQL query, which we're going to paste in the query that we just created. So this is the query required to show our list of team members. Gatsby will execute this for us whenever we run the create page in the Gatsby node file. All right, we need to import some more stuff here. For instance, we need GraphQL from Gatsby. All right, what else do we want? Oh, it already pulled it in. Thank you, TypeScript. Cool. All right, and then we also want to get our layout and SEO component over here. So we're going to pull that in. We're probably going to have to change some of these things to be TypeScript, but that's fine. All right, so let's return just a sanity check here. SEO title equals team members. No need for an exclamation point there. All right, what are we seeing here? So this is saying that the is homepage is missing. So it's already telling us that we have an issue in our code. We actually don't. I mean, we could say is homepage equals false, and then we're good. But why don't we go and edit that component? So I'm going to go to the, let's see, where's our components? It's in components, layout. All right, there it is. And let's just rename this to TSX. Because let's use TypeScript. We love it. And then I'm going to create a props interface layout props is homepage. And then I'm going to make it optional, and it's a Boolean. Then here we can give this a type and say it's a React functional component type with layout props. Now we won't have this problem anymore. I can go back over to my team page and I can get rid of this because it was wrong anyways. And now we're good to go. TypeScript is happy and we like that. All right, now what we want to do is actually grab our data out of here. So there's actually a type that I can pull in here, page props, and I'm not going to type this out, but I'm going to pull this in just so you can see how it works. And it comes from here. Basically, it gives me all the props now that are going to come through from Gatsby. So I can see there's going to be the path, the URA, the params, and down here I've got the data, which is a data type. But I'm passing in the generic, just any, because I don't feel like figuring that out right now. Although I probably should. All right. Members equals data dot. What do we call it? It's all WP team members. Dot members. All right, so now we have our members in a variable. And now we can loop through those in a list. So let's create a list. Let's map them. So a members.map member. And we'll do li. And here we want to have an h2 with our member.name. So remember we alias that down here. That's our title, but we renamed it name. All right, cool. And then we want to have our bio, which is member.data.bio. And let's add a link for our Twitter, which is going to be twitter.com/our Twitter handle, which is member.data.twitter. Awesome. So far, so good. We probably want this to open in a different tab, right? So let's do target equal blank. And we need like security stuff. So no refer. All right, we'll save that. And it looks pretty good, although we're going to get these bullets that we don't want. So let's add a little bit of styling here. List style is none. We don't want any bullets. Yucky. All right. Cool. Now we need to actually build this page whenever Gatsby does its Gatsby magic stuff. So we're going to go into the create pages function and add a new create page action. We'll do path is /team. And then our component is /source/templates. Wait, I don't know where. Yeah, templates /team.tsx. All right, awesome. Now, if we go back over here, we will probably see that we need to restart or something like that. All right, yes, it says we need to restart because we made changes to our Gatsby node. Yes. So we will run Gatsby develop again. We cross our fingers that all of our code is super good and super right, but we use TypeScript, so we're probably pretty confident that this is going to work, right? No, we're not confident at all because we did something wrong. Let's see. Oh, we forgot path.resolve here. Oh, man. Demo gods. All right, let's do this again. See, that file is JavaScript file. You just never know if you're right. But when it's TypeScript, you know. And we're there. All right, we have our page. Here's our site. Now we go to /team. And there it is. Nothing was wrong. It's working. But we created a link with no text in it. So let's add Twitter here. Then we go back, and there's our link. Luke Skywalker goes to Hamill himself. Great account to follow, by the way, especially if you're a Star Wars fan. And then that one works too. So awesome. I landed on Mars. All right, cool. So now what we've seen is we've been able to use custom content types via custom post types UI and the advanced custom fields. This allows us to have WordPress be like a fully featured headless CMS now, which is pretty awesome. And all of it is built into the WP GraphQL schema, which then is pulled in via the plugin for Gatsby, which we're able to query. So this is super cool. I think that you can see a lot of opportunities here to how you could build sites that are more interactive and able to be updated by content producers who are doing who are working with your headless front end. This really prevents them from doing anything wrong here. They can only go into the back end here and they can only add these fields. They can't really mess anything up. It's not like a free form editor where they can mess up the styling or whatnot. They can enter the data the way that you expect it. Then on the front end, you can know what to expect to put on to the page. So I know that the output here isn't super exciting because we didn't get into like any type of styling or do anything too crazy here. It's just a team member page, but hopefully that gets your wheels spinning about what's possible with WordPress and with a couple of plugins and how you can do something that's so powerful without ever even using PHP. So now let's jump back over to the slides and wrap up. All right, hopefully that demo really opened your eyes to how you can use WordPress in different ways than you might have thought possible. And one thing to keep in mind is that whenever we go headless with WordPress, we can power almost any site at any scale because now we're not asking WordPress to do so much like we have in the past. We're able to deploy our front ends horizontally around the world and rely on WordPress for less, and then cache things at the edge and lots of interesting architectures that this opens the door to. So I'm excited to see how everyone uses headless WordPress in the future. And I just want to thank you for spending your time with me, and I want to thank GatsbyConf for having me. Hopefully I can come back. Again, my name is Matt Landers. This is my Twitter handle, Matt_Landers. This is our DevRel site at WP Engine. That's where my team creates all of our content and we push it out. We're just getting it started. And if you have any content that you want related to building headless sites, please reach out to me and the team. We would love to get that on our backlog and build for you and educate as many people as possible on how to build really great headless experiences. So that's it for me. Go out there, have fun, and happy coding.